All right, everybody, today we are making Risotto Alla Milanese, otherwise known as Saffron Risotto. Our ingredients are saffron, butter, Arborio rice, and we have bone marrow and Parmesan cheese there. We also have our hot stock, which is going to be a beef stock today, but you can use chicken or beef stock. Pan, ladle, ingredients, something to stir the risotto with, and we're set to go. First, we're going to start off by adding our butter, and we're just going to have a medium temperature going, not too hot yet, but just kind of get this butter melted up. We don't want it to burn. And then I'm going to add the bone marrow first. And if you're ever curious on just the amounts and the ingredients, I always include them in the description. So we're just going to melt down. You'll notice that the bone marrow pretty much disintegrates. There might be a few chunks, and that's totally fine. But we're going to get a nice base going here. Add our shallot. You can also use an onion here, or you don't even have to use an onion or a shallot for this recipe, but I am. And just sweat the onion off, or rather the shallot in this case, and reduce the acidity on that. Get everything incorporated, season with some salt, and you can see here that we're just about where we want it before going in with the Arborio rice. So we want to add this. Temperature is going to be getting hotter throughout this process. We're going to mix in the rice and get all of the delicious flavors of the shallot, the bone marrow, and our butter mixed together with our rice. And so we want to lightly toast the Arborio rice. And once you start to kind of hear the sizzle, you'll notice that it will toast them lightly. We don't want to burn them. Now we're going to go in with about 1/4 of a cup of white wine. I actually did just a little over that, which I generally like to do. And we'll just stir this constantly until the alcohol has evaporated and we're left with the flavor of the wine, which is going to bring some sweetness to the dish. Not a lot, but a little. And you can see here, most of the wine is gone, and you can actually smell that the alcohol is gone as well. Here is our saffron sprigs. We're going to put in about 3 tablespoons of our hot stock, our beef stock, and make a saffron tea. And so it's going to be very hot water in there, near boiling, and we're just going to put that off to the side as we get going on our risotto. I usually do about 2 ladles full at a time and stir that up. The temperature is going to be getting hotter as well, going from about a medium to medium high. Nothing too hot to where it's cooking too fast, but what you want to see is some bubbles moving, and eventually you'll find that as you stir, the bubbles will stop briefly, but then they'll come back when you stop stirring, and that's kind of perfect. The key to a good risotto is you do want hot stock, and you want to have the boiling going on. And if you're stirring, the boiling will stop briefly, but it'll come right back. And as you see, I'm doing a few ladles at a time, stirring mostly constantly. I'll stop for a few seconds here and there and let it cook, but you're really not letting it stop for too long. It's really, you got to man the station on this for the entire process, which can take about 15 to 20 minutes for the rice to cook. And you'll watch and notice that as you add ladle and after ladle, the rice will soak up the stock. And right now you can see it's a little liquidy. Just keep stirring, get some nice bubbles going. That's what you want to see. And then when you stir, they'll stop slightly, but come right back. And as this thickens up and the rice is soaking up that delicious stock, we're just going to continue to add a few ladles at a time and stir this constantly. When you have a hot stock like that and with the right temperature, you're releasing the starches of the rice just perfectly so that you get a deliciously creamy risotto. And you can see this is starting to thicken up again, so we'll continue with adding our ladles of beef stock. And just continue to stir this up constantly, making sure that nothing is burning. And it'll continue to soak up our delicious stock. Now, we're going to add our saffron tea next. And you want to do this just before your last ladleful or your last 2 ladlefuls of beef stock. And it'll preserve more of the flavor. If you want the risotto to be more yellow, then add it earlier on in the process. But I am trying to go for more of the saffron flavor, so I add it just before the last ladle of beef stock. We don't want to cook out all of that delicious flavor from the saffron. You really start to see that yellow color come into play. It smells incredible. And then we're going to turn off the heat and add our butter. And so once we stir this up, it's going to add a velvety texture, add a richness to the risotto. You can add more or less butter, depending on how rich you want to make it. But I kind of like it somewhere in the middle. I don't like it super rich, but have a nice glossy finish with the butter. And then last, we are going to add about a cup of our, or a half cup of our Parmesan cheese. You can dial that up to a cup, cup and a half. It really just depends on how much you prefer to have your Parmesan speak through the dish. I actually really love Parmesan cheese, so I typically add more than what I added here, but it's going to be just fine anyways. I want a balanced dish. And so let's go ahead and plate this. I am so hungry. I'm ready to eat this. And last, we're just going to garnish this with some Parmesan cheese. And this is some aged Parmesan Reggiano, about 30 months or so. That's why I didn't add as much to the dish, because I know I'm going to add more on top later. And let's get in for that first bite. Just truly decadent, luxurious flavor. Mouth is watering. You got that subtleness of the bone marrow in there, the saffron. Just really makes for an incredible dish. Thanks for watching as always, everyone. I'm going to put a link here for another risotto recipe if you are so inclined to keep watching those. And hit a like and subscribe for weekly videos. Keep on cooking. Bye.